Hey, what is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. On today's video, we are talking about Castor Maritime, ticker symbol CTRM. Now, I know if you did watch my previous video, I did say that I did temporarily exit this position. But as many of you are following this company still, as many of you are still invested into this company, and as I do plan on re-entering at some point in the future, I think it'll be important to keep them around on my channel. Make sure I keep updating you all, and whenever any small changes or big changes are made, that I'll update you all. So if you do want access to this information early, if you want early access to these videos, as well as access to the trades I make, my trade portfolio, weekly updates, weekly watch lists, and a daily newsletter that I release every single morning, go down to the link in the description. It'll bring you over to my Patreon, and that's where I'm fully transparent with all that information. Also, if you are looking to expand out into a new brokerage or start your own investment journey, I highly recommend using the referral link down below. It'll bring you over to Webull. Whenever you open an account and deposit $100, you will get 2 free stocks valued all the way up to $1,850. With that being said, let's go ahead. Let's jump into today's news. I want to make this a fairly quick video. I want to talk about the news. I want to talk about some changes that I see being made. I want to talk about the stock price. We'll look at the technicals a little bit, and then we'll get an overall idea of what I think the stock is going to do in the future. So since we have so much to get into, let's get straight into it. So as we can see here, Castor Maritime announced the delivery of the Magic Twilight and the Magic Thunder. Now, the Magic Twilight is going to be a 2010 Korean-built Kamsarmax dry bulk carrier, and the Magic Thunder is going to be a 2011 Japanese-built Kamsarmax dry bulk carrier. Now, the Magic Twilight will be commencing employment under time charter contract on April 13th, 2021, so a few days ago, and they're going to be expected to operate at a daily gross charter rate of $19,000 for a term of about 20 days. Now, the Magic Thunder is expected to commence employment under a time charter contract on or around April 17th at a daily gross charter rate of $18,900. Now, this is going to be a charter term for about 60 days or about 2 months. So, I think that this is important. I think it's good to see that they are still making moves, making deliveries, making acquisitions, even though the stock price is getting absolutely brutalized. Now, that does show me that they're sticking to their game plan and they're dedicated, and then they're not going to just, get so worried about the stock at the moment that they're going to just completely just disband in their business, as we actually have seen some other companies do. But at the end of the day, that's not me justifying the 2 million to 700 million outstanding shares in a year dilution. But I will say that I think that it is good that the company is still focused and that they're determined on their strategy. Now, one thing that I did want to talk about today, again, this is going to be a quick video, so it's nothing too crazy, is the fact that we're starting to see a change in charter rates. Now, as many of us do know, these charter rates in which they charge for their vessels is pretty volatile. It's going to go up and down with the market. And so as we do see some things like the Baltic Dry Index dropping, as we're seeing the average rate in which these companies can charge for the delivery of their vessels, as we're seeing that drop, we also start to see Castor Maritime's, how much they are charging in their daily gross charter rate decreasing as well. Well, the reason I think that this is important and it's something to keep an eye on is because I think it gets to the point that we have to consider as investors, future investors or previous investors, okay, exactly how worth it is all this dilution, right? Because I think at the time, whenever the BDI was just going absolutely through the roof, again, the Baltic Dry Index, and as we were seeing the daily gross charter rates in which they were charging up into 25,000s, it made a lot of sense as to why they were doing it. We were like, okay, they're diluting shares down, but look at how much they're able to charge right now. They're setting some very long-term charters. It does make sense. It's annoying, but it makes a lot of sense. But as we start to see the amount in which they can charge, as we start to see their overall, the indexes that track how much these prices are moving, which we will go over in a second here, as we're starting to see that fall, then we start to question, okay, is it even worth it, right? Are you diluting shares down so much for something that's even worth it, or should you be focused now on your stockholders, and are you going to now focus on the people who are actually invested in your company and just grow with what you have? You kind of get to that ultimatum, right? So one thing I do want to take a look at, if we do look at the Magic Thunder, a 2011 Japanese-built Kamsarmax dry bulk carrier, again, we can see that it is going to be operating at a daily gross charter rate for 2 months at around $19,000. Well, if we jump back only a month, we can see that they announced the delivery of the Magic Argo. Now, the Magic Argo is going to be at a daily gross charter of $25,000 and an expected term of about 4 months. So these terms are a little bit longer back then, and they were a lot more. I mean, that is a significant increase in the amount in which they're charging. Now, the only difference is really is that that this is a 2009 and the Thunder is a 2011. So fundamentally, there's really not much different other than the fact that we are starting to see these rates decrease. Well, we can see that displayed in the Baltic Dry Index. Now, the thing about it is, at the time that this was announced, we were starting to really see the Baltic Dry Index taking off. And so a lot of these companies were able to realistically overcharge for the amount in which they are going to be taking in for the delivery. Well, what we did see is that over the last few weeks, it has been dropping a good bit. Now, it has seemed like it started to recover a bit in April, and hopefully it does start to retest some of those highs from the end of March, as of course that would be great for companies in the maritime industry. But again, we have started to see it fall down, and the growth in which we're seeing being displayed is not as fast as we saw before. So I think it's definitely important to keep an eye on this in order to, start to decide whether or not all of this dilution is worth it, and whether or not it's worth the investment if they do continue to dilute shares down and not be able to generate that much revenue in comparison to what they were before from the dilution in which they are doing. So now we will go ahead, let's take a look at just some of the technicals and get an idea of what exactly this company has been doing. Now, I think that it's important to take a look at some resistance levels, and I think we need to pay attention to how this stock is moving in comparison to where its resistance levels are. Now, I will let you guys know that I sold out right around this area here. I knew that we were falling, but I knew that there was a supreme level of resistance at this point, and I was like, if we fall through that resistance, I will likely start to look to exit. Well, I thought that if they did fall through resistance, that they wouldn't just absolutely destroy this entire, region right here. And so whenever it fell all the way through there, it was a no-brainer for me. I was immediately exiting because they do act on resistance well. That's one thing I will say, is that this company will operate on these resistance levels like it is no tomorrow. I mean, as we can see here, it was resistance after resistance after resistance, and they will continue to follow those trends. So whenever it fell through that, I knew that once we broke through this and maintained through this, that it was probably going to be falling to about the 36-cent range, and that's something that I'm not personally looking to. I don't want to lose 40-30%. And so as we can see, it has been on a constant decline over the last week or two. Now, personally, I'm seeing that it is slowing down a little bit in the rapid rate in which it is falling. It is nice to see it start to decelerate a little. And my guess is, though, even that we're starting to see a bit of a green day today of about 2%, my guess is that overall for the next few weeks, we're going to see this thing just completely slow down and then likely start to retest the 35 to 40 cent range. Now, at that point, it is very crucial to see what exactly this stock is going to do. If it does breach this resistance and start to fall towards 18, then I would start to get really, really, really nervous that it might not ever recover. But my guess is that it'll likely start to bounce off of that 35 to 40 cent range and then hopefully maintain those levels for maybe a few weeks before starting to see some growth. Now, I think it's going to take a lot from the company itself to make this thing start to grow again. I think that they are going to have to do something about the dilution at some point. I think eventually they're going to need to just put some of that cash aside, use some of that cash to buy back shares, or do something significant that is going to make this stock appealing to investors. I think with a $400 million market cap and only generating revenues of maybe $20 million a year at the moment, it just doesn't make too much sense. Now, that 20 million might turn into 40 million, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of value investors are still going to struggle to see the appeal. And I think at that point, that is going to be very detrimental for the company. So they're going to have to do something to turn this ship around, quite literally, and stop, just focusing too much on dilution, as I'm not a super big believer that if they continue doing the same methods in which they have and following the same pattern, I can't imagine that the stock price is going to see 50 cents anytime soon. Honestly, I truly believe that it might see 50 sometime within this week, but then once it starts to really fall, it's going to continue to really fall. So that's my expectation. I think my entry point would be somewhere around this 35-cent mark if it is capable of maintaining those levels. I mean, even if it does start to consolidate within this channel, I would be happy, because it is easy to trade Castor Maritime based off resistance points, as it typically will follow them. So I'll be keeping a close eye on them. Again, I do love the company. I do think they have a lot of potential, but I think they're making some mistakes right now, and I think that they aren't really taking the investors into consideration whenever it comes to some of the moves they're making, and that is going to be detrimental to their stock price in the short term, as we can see right now. So, of course, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice at all. I actually do really, really love this company, but of course, I'm not telling you to go buy them at any of these prices, because this is entertainment purposes only. But hopefully, again, we do start to see a little bit more resistance here, and we start to see this stock stabilize a bit, so we can start to plan our re-entry. If you do want access to the trades I make, if I decide randomly to just get back in on this stock, if I see anything happen, if you want early access to that info, again, go down to the link in the description. It'll bring you over to my Patreon, and that's where I'm fully transparent transparent with every single thing I do. Now, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, you can let me know, of course, by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you are new. I post on this channel 2 to 3 times every single day, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Peace.